Welcome to the lectures of ACCA paper F8 international paper, audit and assurance. These are the main contents of your syllabus. I have divided all the chapters in different parts. Part A include 4 chapters, which are what is audit and assurance, the rules and who sets them, corporate governance, ethics and acceptance of appointment. So overall in this area we are going to discuss about the basics of audit, you can say, which you need to know in order to go on to more complex areas of the syllabus. Part B is divided into 3 chapters: risk assessment, audit planning and audit documentation. As you know that a work well planned is a work half done. So before going on to the main audit areas, audit procedures, we need to plan the audit. And before planning the audit, we need to assess the risks facing a particular organization. And finally, we have to document each and every single thing. So at the end of the day, there are no issues. In part C, we have 2 chapters: systems and controls and test of controls. So overall you can say in this area we are going to discuss about the internal controls of the client. It means that when we are going to audit a particular organization, the first thing we need to do is to test their internal controls. If their internal controls are effective, so we will do less audit procedures. If their internal controls are weak, we will do more audit procedures. Then we have part D, the main part of the syllabus, you can say, because of this chapter, audit evidence. Audit evidence are those main audit procedures which we have to perform in order to give a true and fair view on the financial statements. All the different terminologies and words which I am using at the moment are going to be explained in the later videos. So don't worry and just go on. Then we have not-for-profit organization, a very small chapter, that if you are going to audit a not-for-profit, what are the issues involved, because their main purpose is not the making of the profit. They are there to provide services to the public, you can say. So then we have internal audit, and finally we will study about computer assisted audit techniques. And finally part E has 2 chapters: completion and review and reporting. This is the last stage of audit, when you will finally report to the owners of the business, to the shareholders, that the financial statements give a true and fair view or not. So everything which we are doing in part A till D is for part E, you can say. So the syllabus is structured in such a manner that you will not face any difficulty while studying it. So as you remember, chapter number 1 is what is audit and assurance, a very easy concept which I am going to tell you now. The main themes of this chapter are, first of all, you should know that what is audit. Moving on, you should know what is assurance, because the name of the paper is audit and assurance. So they both are not exactly same. There are some differences. Accountability, stewardship and agency theory, which you may know from your F1 studies. What is a true and fair view? What are the types of assurance services? Assurance for companies, concept of incorporation, internal and external audit, the differences, levels of assurance auditor can give, what is the difference between audit and review, engagements, what are the benefits and limitations of audit, and what are the common misconceptions about the auditor. So, first of all, let me give you an example. I am starting up a business in UK, okay, and I am a very rich person and I have many businesses all around the world as well. So, the UK business I am giving to my best friend that you take care of it. I am going to Australia to take care of my other businesses. You can say my main base is in Australia. So, the best friend, my childhood best friend, he will take care of this business and I am in Australia. After 1 year, my best friend reported me a profit of, you can say, $10,000. His salary out of this $10,000, his amount which we have agreed earlier is $5,000. So he said me, my salary is 5,000 and the remaining 5,000 I am giving to you. So he sent me that remaining 5,000 dollars, or you can say pounds, to Australia. I was very happy that he is making a lot of profit. In the second year, he told me that the profits, they are 8,000 due to some market conditions, other political factors. The profits have decreased. I said, okay, fine, no problem. But his salary is fixed. He will still get $5,000. So he sent me how much now? Only 3,000. In the third year, he never contacted me. Why? So I was very confused at that time and frustrated as well that he has not contacted me, and when I was calling him, he was not picking up the call. So one of my other colleague in UK, I called him and I asked him to go to the relevant area and check it out what is happening there. So when my colleague went over there, so instead of a small shop, he found a 5-star hotel over there. So I hope so you got my point, that my best friend, my childhood best friend, he did a fraud with me. He made money, from my business, and he opened his own business and he closed my shop. He is running his 5-star hotel now. So what do you think? This is fair? This is ethical? Very, very unethical act from my best friend. Because in this fake world, no one is your friend. So this is just an example to tell you about the story. So the person to whom I called in UK that go and check out my friend, okay, so he is going there to analyze the situation, to evaluate the situation, to supervise, you can say, to inspect, to investigate what is going on. So you can say that third party person, my third party colleague, can be called as an auditor, because he is going on my behalf to check the friend whom I appointed for the business. Similarly, when you are talking about the business companies, so this is a company. Company is owned by shareholders. Company is owned by shareholders. And company is run by board of directors. Okay, so this is the difference. There is a difference between the ownership and control. So this is the problem again, that I am owning that shop and my best friend is running that shop. So conflict of interest can arise. Conflict of interest can arise because most of the time, due to human greed, which can never be satisfied, board of directors will try to act in their own self interest. So who appoint the board of directors? Shareholders appoint board of directors to run the company on their behalf. Okay, say like I appointed my friend to run the shop, similarly shareholders appoint the board of directors to run the company. Now I am not sure, I am not satisfied that board of directors will act in my self interest. They will work towards the success of the company, towards the long term success of the company. So I need to appoint a person, separate person, you can say third party, who is called auditor. Who is called auditor, and they will go and they will audit the financial statements. They will inspect, supervise, analyze, evaluate the situation, and then they will report to me on the situation of the company. Getting my point, everyone? So shareholders appoint the auditors. Why? Because auditors are the third parties, independent third parties. Independent means they are not the employees of the company. They will go, they will audit, they will check the company's accounts, and then finally they will report to me on the progress of the company. They will give me a true and fair view, or they will tell me that the company is not running well, there are some issues involved, all these things are coming ahead. So this is the concept of this paper, you can say, a very interesting one. So I was telling you about the audit. Now moving on, what is an audit? An audit is an examination and verification of a company's financial statements, accounting records, and supporting documents by a professional who is called an auditor. I just told you that auditor is going to verify, to inspect, to check the company, the board of directors. Are they fulfilling their responsibilities in a good manner or not? So the main thing is this: financial statements. When I am saying financial statements, it means 5 things: statement of profit or loss, statement of financial position, statement of comprehensive income, statement of profit or loss, statement of financial position, statement of cash flows, statement of changes in equity, and notes to the accounts. These are the 5 things. So income statement is no longer called income statement, it is now called statement of profit or loss, which you are going to study in F7. If you have done F7, so you may be familiar with these words already. So you can say we are doing audit on F7. When you are studying F8 paper, you are doing audit on F7 paper. Whatever you studied in F7, we are verifying it, examining it. Objective of audit evidence. The purpose of an audit is to enhance the degree of confidence of intended users. Now, if you remember, auditor is reporting to the shareholders. So shareholders are called intended users of the financial statements. There are other people as well, other users as well, which I will tell you later on, but the main users are shareholders. So they are reporting. So this is achieved by expression of an audit opinion. They will give me an opinion that financial statements present a true and fair view or not. So this is the objective of audit evidence, you can say. In accordance with applicable reporting framework, which is International Financial Reporting Standards. So you can say that if you remember in F7 you have IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. In auditing we have International Standards on Auditing. So IFRS, if you can say IAS as well, IAS International Accounting Standards. So previously the standards were called IAS, now they are called IFRS. The new standards are coming with IFRS attached to them, like IFRS 9. And then we have International Standards on Auditing, which are based on these standards, you can say. We are auditing these standards. So the overall objective of every audit engagement can include 4 basic aims. 4 aims you have. When you are going for an audit engagement, you have 4 main aims, your objectives. Number 1, to evaluate whether financial statements are in accordance with specified criteria. It means IAS, whether the financial statements are made accordance with IFRS. To evaluate the effectiveness and appropriateness of internal control system. As I told you earlier, we have a separate section in which we are going to discuss about internal controls. Again, to evaluate the possibility of fraud occurring within the organization, because you are in a very good position to detect fraud. But again, later on when we will study about the fraud and errors, I will tell you that this is not the main responsibility of an auditor to detect fraud. But if they come to know about any type of fraud during their audit, they have to report it. To evaluate the likelihood that the organization will continue as a going concern. Going concern means the organization will be able to continue for the foreseeable future, for the next 1 year. So when they are reporting to the shareholders, they have to evaluate this likelihood as well. Because if the company is not a going concern, so the accounts cannot be prepared on a normal basis. They need to be prepared on a liquidation basis. So this was audit. Now what is assurance? Assurance is needed too. Assurance is a day-to-day English word, assure. You are assuring something to increase the confidence, to reduce the risk, to help in decision making. Now see, when you are reporting to the shareholders, their confidence is increasing or not? Definitely, because now a third party is telling them about the company situation, so their confidence can definitely increase on the company. Similarly, you are evaluating the internal controls as well, so it reduces the risk towards the company. And finally, they can make a decision that whether to keep the shares or whether to sell the shares, because if the audit report is qualified, this term is coming ahead, qualified. In the last chapters I will tell you what is qualified, what is unqualified. So qualified means there are problems in the accounts, so at that time they can make the decision that the internal controls are not fine, financial reporting process is not good. So they may either they will ask the directors about that if they are major shareholders, justify this discrepancy. Otherwise, if they are minority shareholders, they may sell their shares as well if they are no more interested in the company. Why get assurance? Successful financial markets needs decision making. Like this is a requirement of the stock exchanges all around the world, that if you wish to list on the stock exchange, you have to have your company audited, company accounts audited. Huge amount of capital, definitely share capital is involved. The company's shares are listed on the stock exchange, so at that time you need to have assurance about the company, because public money is involved, you can say. Again, reliability of financial information is key to decision making, as I told you earlier, and assurance services help in providing confidence. Again, this thing I told you earlier. This is the definition of assurance examiner can ask you very well. Assurance is an engagement in which a practitioner expresses a conclusion designed to enhance the degree of confidence of the intended user. These are the main words in this definition. Others than the responsible party, about the outcome of the evaluation or measurement of a subject matter against criteria. Let us discuss in detail. Remember, shareholders were there, board of directors were there, auditors were there, and financial statements are there as well. So, who is the practitioner? Practitioner means auditor. Practitioner means auditor. Expresses a conclusion audit report designed to enhance the degree of confidence of whom? The intended user. Who is the intended user? Shareholders. Others than the responsible party. Who is the responsible party? Board of directors. About the outcome of the evaluation or measurement of a subject matter. So, what is the subject matter? Financial statements are the subject matter. Against criteria. Now, what is the criteria? If you remember, financial statements are based on IFRS. So, criteria is IFRS. So, I will audit the financial statements against IFRS by using my own international standards on auditing, which are applied on IFRS. So, this is basically the definition of assurance, which is explained over here. Five key elements of assurance engagement. As I just told you that there are three parties. In the definition, they were referring to a practitioner, intended user, responsible party. So, who is practitioner? Auditor. Who is intended user? Shareholders and other stakeholders. Who is responsible party? Board of directors. What is the subject matter? Financial statements. Suitable criteria? IFRS. If IFRS are not followed in a particular country like in USA, so other applicable standards, they have gap available over there. So it is a suitable criteria. Evidence to give opinion is the audit procedures which you will perform. And finally, the written report is called audit report. I hope so it is going fine with you all who are watching this video right now. So moving on with the concept of accountability, stewardship and agency. Accountability. Accountability means responsibility. You are accountable for your action to some other party. Why? Because if you are being given responsibility from other party, they will definitely hold you accountable at the end. So you can say accountability comes with responsibility. Stewardship means that you are the caretaker of the business, you can say. And agency is a very easy concept coming from ACCA paper F4. In the agency law, if you have studied, that principal appoint agent to deal with third parties and then report back to principal about the dealings. Now, applying these three concepts to the particular situation of this audit topic and to the companies, who is accountable to whom? First thing. So they are saying an audit of a company's accounts is needed because the owners of the business are often not the same persons as the individuals who manage and control. Like I told you, shareholders are sitting outside of the business and the company is run by the board of directors. Okay. So this is the problem, that they are not the same people who are running the business, they are outside. So definitely they need to hold board of directors accountable, because their money is involved, they have invested in the company. It is therefore important that directors are accountable to the shareholders. This is the point. Stewardship role, directors have a stewardship role definitely, because they are the caretaker. They look after the assets of the company and manage them on behalf of the shareholders. So they are taking care of the company, the assets of the company on the shareholders' behalf. So they are in a stewardship role as well. As the shareholders have bought shares in the company, they expect a return from their investment in the form of dividends and capital gain. These are two main objectives of shareholders. Dividend is the amount which is given to shareholders from the profits of the company every year, or half yearly you can say. And capital gain is the increase in the value of the share, you can say. Like you purchased a share for 10 pounds and now its value is 13 pounds. So this extra 3 pounds is called capital gain. If you will sell the share for 13 pounds, the 3 pound you gained extra is called capital gain. And as the directors are managing their investment, they are in a position to affect that return, definitely, because they are running the company. With more effort, with more dedication, with more passion, with more ideas, they will run the company. They can take the companies towards success. Otherwise, the aeroplane will be crashed, because the pilot of the company, the pilot is CEO, Chief Executive Officer. So he has the ability to take the company towards success or to bring it down, crash it. The relation between shareholders and board of directors is also an application of the agency theory. Why? Because shareholders are called principal, they are the owners. They have appointed the board of directors as their agents to deal with the external world, third parties, you can say, suppliers, customers, government, taxation authorities, regulators, banks. So many stakeholders are involved. So they are dealing on behalf of the owners, the principal, the shareholders, with the external world. So this is an application of agency theory, you can say, where agent has a legal duty to act in the best interest of the principal and should be accountable to the principal for everything that he does. Now agent is responsible, accountable to whom? Principal, because they have appointed them. So whatever acts they are doing with the external world, they have to report back to shareholders, and as you know, they are reporting them in a form of financial statements, which auditor is auditing. Now the report is the audit report which I told you. Auditors are giving a true and fair view. What do you mean by true and fair view auditor's report? Even the best soap in this world cannot guarantee that after the usage there will be no germs on your hands, on your body. They will always say you 99.9%. This is why? Because no one can guarantee anything. It is possible that after the usage of that soap you may get ill, so at that time you cannot sue that company. That's why they keep this deficiency over here. Similarly, when I am selecting the auditors for auditing the company's financial statements, so this is the year from 1st of Jan till 31st of December. After the end of the year, there are 3 months till 31st of March, for example, 3 to 4 months in which the audit will be done, the annual audit. So in these 3 to 4 months, it is very, very difficult to analyze each and every single thing which happened in this 1 year. This 1 year is a very big time. So they do audit on a sampling basis, which is coming ahead. Everything is in detail will be ahead. So they do audit on a sampling basis. They cannot give 100% assurance. No, impossible for them. If they will give, they will be caught in the court of law at the end of the day. If the company is going bankrupt later on, so they will be caught that you said 100% assurance and they are gone. So that's why auditors give reasonable assurance. What is reasonable assurance? More than 50%, which is called true and fair. Give an opinion on the truth and fairness of the financial statements, not an opinion of absolute correctness. 100% means absoluteness. If you are saying 100%, it means absolute assurance. Which is not possible. You cannot give. Not. Auditor does not certify. I am not giving a certification that financial statements are correct. No, misconception. So what is true and what is fair, many times examiner asks in the FAID paper. So you have to write these points. Information is factual and conforms with reality. It is real, based on facts and figures. Not false, free from error. Conforms with required standards and laws. Standards, you can say IFRS, GAAP, laws of the country as well. Correctly extracted from the books and records. Like we are making accounting records from the ledger accounts to the trial balance and then to the financial statements. So they have been correctly extracted. When the auditor is saying the accounts are true, they are telling about these 4 points. They refer to these 4 points. Fair, it means not unfair. It is free from discrimination and bias, because accounting is based on judgment. So many judgments are involved. So auditors have to analyze those judgments and hold accountable the directors, the managers. Justify your judgments. Justify your judgments. If they will not justify, they are not able to justify, then I will not give them a clean report. In compliance with expected standard and rules, again, like it was written above as well, conforms with required standard and laws. So both are almost similar words. Accounts reflect the commercial substance of the company. Commercial substance, you can say substance over form. This is a concept in financial accounting, substance over form. So for example, you are having a finance lease. So although you are not owning the asset, but you are controlling the asset at that time, so you have to record it as an asset in your accounts with a corresponding liability. So this is called substance over form, that although you are not the owner, but you have to record it because it is a commercial substance of that transaction, that you are controlling it. And this is a definition of asset, that resources controlled by the organization are called assets. I hope so. It is easy, very, very important topic, and easy one as well. Types of assurance services. Now remember, the name of your paper is Audit and Assurance. The name of your paper is Audit and Assurance. You can say that audit is coming under assurance. Audit is a type of assurance activity. So assurance is the main word. Audit is coming under assurance, one type of assurance activity. So audit of financial statements is a type of assurance service. Review of financial statements. Review is a little bit less than audit, which is coming ahead as well. Risk assessment reports. You are assessing the risks of the organization and reporting how to manage those risks, what can be the impact of these risks on the organization's operations. System reliability reports. The internal control systems are effective or not. Reports on social and environmental issues of the organization. Reviews of internal controls. Value for money audits in public sector. Now public sector, the government owned sector. Public sector means the government owned sector. Public sector means the government owned sector. So value for money audit means 3 E's. economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. Of operations of the public sector. Like public sector means you can say the government owned sector again. They are providing you with the railway services, transport facilities, infrastructure, health services. So all are for the services of the general public. So at the end of the day, if you need to have audit on these activities, you need to identify these 3 E's. That are they on a reasonable price? Are they efficient? Are they effective? Providing the function in a good manner for which they were intended. So this is called value for money audits. Your syllabus is mostly on the first one, audit of financial statements. Other are also included, a little bit of touch is there, but mainly this is your syllabus. The remaining will be more elaborated in paper P7, Advanced Audit and Assurance. So if you wish to have this paper as option, if you like audit, you can keep that paper as an option paper when you will go ahead. Assurance for companies. Now the financial statements which I am making, which the company is making, what is the use of those financial statements? Number one, definitely I have to give to shareholders so that they can make decisions about whether to sell the share, whether to keep the share, whether to do more investment in the company. To review the company performance. They can definitely review the company performance by having a look at the statement of profit or loss, statement of financial position as well, statement of cash flows. Okay. Potential investors before, like you, now you are not a shareholder, but you are interested in investing. So you are called potential. Potential means future investor. So if I wish to invest in a company, I will review the financial statements first, and then I will see the share price is going up or not, what is the EPS, what are the dividends, and then I will make my mind to invest in that company. The banks need the financial statements before lending to you. They will give you the loans after reviewing the audited financial statements again. Your customers, they need to know about your situation before entering into a contract, because they need a sustainable supplier. If your business is not sustainable, there will be a loss for the customers. They have to change suppliers every time. Employee to judge bonus and salary payouts. Now your own employees, even they are concerned about the financial position of the company, because their career depends on the success of the company. And taxation authorities, they are there to impose tax on your profits, and they will use your statement of profit or loss and they will convert it into their P&L, which is done in paper F6 of ACCA, which you may have already studied. Concept of incorporation. Now business operation through limited liability company. What is a limited liability company? It means the liability of the shareholders is limited to the amount of the share they have, not more than that. So if the company is going bankrupt, at the end of the day, your loss is only your share. If you are talking about sole traders or partnerships, they are unlimited. Although there are some limited partnerships as well, but I am assuming partnerships are unlimited. So sole traders and partnerships, now their liability is unlimited. What do you mean by unlimited? It means if their business is ceasing, closing down, and they have some liabilities pending, so they have to bring money from their home, from anywhere else. They have to bring the money, they have to settle that liability, they have no choice. High risk, that's why. So this is the reason to open a company as well, because company you can register as a limited company. In that situation, the liability is limited. the owner's liability is limited to the amount of the assets of the company. So if the company is going bankrupt, all the assets of the company will be sold, and if there are some remaining liabilities, they are remain unpaid. They are remain unpaid. So for the owners, you can say this is a happy situation because they don't need to bring money from their home. Legal distinction between the owners and the business itself. Now, if you remember the basic accounting concept of separate entity concept, that business is separate from the owner. Business is separate from the owner. This is accounting concept on which accounting is based. Opportunity for owners to detach from day-to-day operations, like shareholders are sitting outside of the business. Need for managers to operate the business on a daily basis, which are the board of directors. Owners are sitting outside, managers are running the company. So that's why you can say business is separate from the owner. Legal distinction is there. So if there is any case on the company, it will be on the company's name, like Unilever. So it will not be on the employees of the company, on the shareholders of the company, that Mr. ABC. It will be on the name of the Unilever. Directors want, what directors want, my friends? They want maximum bonus. Greedy people. They want salary. They want other benefits. Like you may have done in F6 employment income, all the benefits, car benefit, accommodation benefit, so many other benefits are there. Shareholders, owners want profit maximization, higher share price. This is their happiness. And you can say that this is a conflict of interest. These both can be in conflict with each other at times. So at that time, you need to link both of these wants with each other in order to have goal congruence. This is called goal congruence. Like you can attach the bonus of the directors with the share price, so they will work for higher share price. So they are also happy. Shareholders are also happy because share price is going up. So this is the thing. Moving on, external and internal audit. External and internal audit. So very easy concept. You know, many times the company is operating over there, a big company. External auditors are coming for a very limited period of time to the company at the end of the year. Now, during the year, you can say, during the year, if we need to have the same type of a thing, the same type of inspections, investigations going on inside the company, inspections, investigations, evaluations. So we need to have some people inside the organization every time, all the year round. So there comes the need for a separate department which is called internal audit department. Which is called internal audit department. They are generally the employees of the company. They can also be outsourced as well, but most of the time they are employees of the company. External auditors are not the employees of the company. So external audit is on financial statements, but internal audit is not only on financial statements, it is done on overall company. Many situations and aspects are involved. You can do fraud investigations, you can do value for money audits inside the company. Similarly, you can evaluate internal controls as well. So done by internal procedures and policies by a team of internal auditors to improve, not required by law. This is not required by law. This is required by law. External audit is required by law for large and listed companies. Internal audit is not required. Like financial accounting is required by law to produce the financial statements. Management accounting is not compulsory. It depends on you. But I am not referring that management accounting is relating to internal audit, just a separate concept I just told you. Done by registered audit firms. in the country. Like, if you know about the big four firms at the moment, PwC, EY, Deloitte, KPMG, these are the big four firms all around the world, audit firms. Now, external audit is enabling the auditor to give a true and fair view. Why? Because I am trying to tell them that it is reasonably accurate, not absolute correctness, unbiased, clear, understandable. Like I have already told you what is true and fair. At that time I told you no biasness should be there. In the fair thing I told you no biasness should be there. And they are prepared in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework, which can be, for example, IFRS. Levels of assurance. If you remember, I just told you that in audit, we are giving reasonable assurance. If you are talking about review, it is a little bit less than audit. Short time period, you are taking a bird's eye view, you can say. You are taking a bird's eye view of the company's operations. So, at that time, if you are taking a bird's eye view of the company's operations, it is not possible for you to give reasonable assurance. Neither absolute assurance nor reasonable assurance you can give. So what to give? So the answer is that limited assurance. What is limited assurance? It means you will say like this: nothing has come to my attention. Nothing. If you are satisfied with the bird's eye view, you will tell them nothing has come to my attention which causes me to believe that something is wrong. So this is called review limited assurance. It is below reasonable assurance, you can say. Review is normally done on quarterly accounts. When the company is making quarterly accounts or interim accounts, so at that time review is done. An audit is usually done on annual basis, on annual accounts. Like if you are giving a reasonable assurance, so what is the wording? In our opinion, the financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial position and performance of the company. And if you are giving limited assurance, you will say nothing has come to my attention which causes me to believe that financial statements are not prepared in accordance with framework. So this is the change of the wording, you can say. This is called positive assurance. You are writing a positive statement. This is called negative assurance. We cannot give absolute assurance, as I already told you, can only give reasonable assurance because they contain judgments and estimates. Accounting is based on judgment. I cannot guarantee anything. We are doing on a sample basis. We are not testing each and every single transaction. Fraud may be disguised. We are unable to cover it. It is possible. And conclusion is persuasive rather than conclusive. It means that we are trying to persuade, the board of directors are persuading us that they have done correct accounting treatment. It is not conclusive because accounting is subjective. Some things are objective, but overall we have subjective issues as well. So every time directors will persuade me about a specific judgment or event or transaction, and I need to ask them, I need to have justification from them. If I am satisfied, I will give them the opinion, but not 100%. I cannot give 100%. This is just a difference between audit and review. Audit is compulsory, detailed procedures you have to do, you will give reasonable assurance, and it is called a positive report, as I have just told you. Review is voluntary, not compulsory. Bird's eye view. Now, analytical procedures and inquiries. Analytical procedures means calculating ratios, doing trend analysis, those types of things. These are coming ahead in the audit evidence chapter, we will do, inshallah. Limited assurance, like I told you, negative. Nothing has come to my attention which causes me to believe that something is wrong. What are the benefits of audit? Improves confidence, I told you already. It is independent from a third party. Reduce risk, because management can be biased, working in their own self-interest. Therefore, shareholders are sending the auditors. More reliable information, deficiencies are highlighted. This is something which we will do in the last part of the syllabus, when I will tell you something about management letter. So there is something called management letter. Kindly write it now. At the end of the day, you will link it to that chapter, what is management letter. We will highlight some of the deficiencies inside the accounting system and internal controls. Limitations, there can be no absolute assurance. We cannot give it. Not done on 100%, we cannot do it. Again, limitation. And hidden management fraud may not be revealed. It is still existing. So these are all the limitations of audit. Finally, common misconceptions about the auditors. What the shareholders perceive who don't know about the accounting system, don't know about the audit concept. They believe that we are checking 100%, although this is not the case. We are doing on a sampling basis. They believe that we are required to detect fraud. Again, I will tell you later on that fraud detection is not our main responsibility. This is the responsibility of the management. And we are responsible for making accounts. So if we will make the accounts, then why should we audit it? This will be termed as self-review threat at that time, which is also coming ahead in the threats to objectivity chapter. I will tell you what is a self-review threat. When you are checking your own work, how you can give assurance on your own work. You will never extract your own mistakes. So these are the common misconceptions about the auditor in the minds of the management of small companies who are not qualified people, or in the minds of the potential shareholders, you can say, or even some shareholders who have no knowledge about accounting. So these misconceptions should be cleared in your audit report, which I will tell you later on. Thank you so much for listening to this lecture. I hope so you enjoyed it. See you in the next class of paper F8. Take care.